My question has to do with children. And I know that they innately know who they are. And my question has to do with how do we, who are a little pulled away from that and just, getting back to knowing who we are, how do we guide them to stay in that place rather than, have the influence of outside? That's one part of it. And the other is when little people have a desire that's different than yours, that's not really in their best interest, like say they want to grab the scissors that are on the counter or something and they go into a panic and, cry and scream. What's a way to settle them and encourage them without all the anger and, and no, stuff?
Well, the most valuable thing that you could do for anyone that you care about is teach through the clarity of your example. And then you want to ask, well, what is it that I most want to remind others of? Even my child in a moment of disconnection, or anyone, what is it that I want to teach? And if we were standing in your physical shoes, the thing that we would most want to remind others of is that they are source energy in physical bodies, and that the source part of them has already become that which they want, which is responsible for the fit they're throwing right now. In other words, no one ever throws a fit over anything, or any version of a fit, as you are describing, other than when they are standing in a place where they have become something that they in this moment are not letting themselves become. The majority of the tantrums that children or anyone are throwing are because they want something, and what they really want is the freedom to have whatever it is that they are currently focused upon, and a equally powerful, if not greater, belief that I am not being allowed, or I cannot have this thing that I want. And the more sensitive you are to vibration, and the more you want something, the more that feels like a pillow being pressed to your face. So what you want to teach is that no one can keep you from anything, and that's not the easiest thing to do. In other words, very often you're the one that's saying no to the child, and so then the child is in this place where they want something that you have made them believe that they cannot have, and you are the object of attention that they see as standing between what they want and what they are getting. And so it's tricky for parents who have not yet come to the place of understanding that you cannot prevent your child's evolution. Now, there are a lot of parents, even in this room, that are confused or disagreeing, saying, but wait a minute, isn't it possible that my child wants to do something that might be harmful to that child? And we say, well, by the time you've all gotten so disconnected that you're trying to make your decisions about what's right and wrong based upon how conditions are turning out, you've gotten far enough away from your guidance system that we can see that it's hard to straighten it out. But you could begin any time with anyone by demonstrating how you feel when you are flowing with the current and how you feel when you're not. So if we were a parent standing in physical shoes with children who are observing us and having their experiences around us, we would not, first of all, we would not pretend that we feel good when we don't. And we would not try to coerce them into doing things by feeling bad. In other words, we would not get into a place where we really know what we don't want and then demand of them that they do things that make us feel better. Right. Instead, we would demonstrate that life's happening out there, and that I, as your mentor or parent, have a choice in how I respond to life that's happening. I can freak out over little things, or I can be easy even over big things. I can demonstrate that I have control of my direction in the stream. And when I demonstrate that consistently, not only am I demonstrating my deliberateness of thought, but I'm demonstrating the ease that I feel as I'm going with the flow. And I'm also demonstrating a successful life, and by that we mean a joyful life. I'm teaching it all by example.
So you're saying that when you have children who are acting out a lot or having a fit, that we're kind of bringing that to ourselves because maybe we're in that space.
We know that it's possible for a child to be having its own personal fit and a parent to now be responding to the child's fit, but in the majority of cases, it's the other way around.
Exactly.
The parent got disconnected first, emanated that vibration all over the place, set the pattern of uneasiness in the household, and now the child, who has a fast-moving stream, is bucking that current, and they are just less socialized into repressing their fit than adults are. In other words, the biggest difference between children and adults are the children throw their fits openly, where adults hold them in, have them privately, and display them in terms of disease.
Yes, yes.
As parents watch their children showing signs of displeasure, the first thing that they want to do is swoop in and make it better right away so that they will feel better. And what happens when you do that is you teach them something that we're trying to get you to forget about. You teach them that they are responding to conditions and that it's possible to adjust enough conditions that then they can feel better. So you teach them something that the universe at large will not continue to teach them. You teach them that there's someone who is physical who will intervene on their behalf and adjust the conditions so that now all they have to do is just keep observing conditions and have responses to conditions. And that's all right if mother is powerful and always present and can give her undivided attention to what makes you happy. And many of you, it's interesting to watch you, many of you want an arbitrator like that on your behalf to be present. You ask it from your mother, and until she gets tired of it, you do pretty good at getting it from her or from your father. You ask it from your best friends. If they are really your best friend, you say, then you'll be there for me. You demand it of your mates until death do we part. And please let it come soon.
Yes.
In other words, there's a whole lot of, I would feel better if things were different. So since you love me, don't you think you should try to make things different? Employers do it to employees. Employees do it to each other. In other words, these conditions don't please me. And so let's get together. Let's vote. Let's coerce. Let's coerce other nations into doing our bidding, to do as we please. And we say, how's it working out? It's not working out on a personal level in your household. It's not working out in terms of your peers. It's not working out in terms of your political agreements with one another. It's not working out in your world politics. It's not working out because it is not possible to control conditions in terms of action. It is only possible to control the vibrational gap personally in you between where you stand and what you're looking at and how you're feeling and who you really are and what you have become. There is so much that you could do, any of you as parents, that are downstream behaviors with your children as compared to upstream behaviors, but you can't do it unless you're naturally and mostly flowing downstream. And mostly what we hear when we are hearing about these interpersonal relationships between lovers or between parents and their children or between anyone is that the person who is wanting to help the other, in the majority of cases, hasn't figured out how to go with the flow before they try to help them. And when you're pointed upstream, you can't help anybody. If you are not selfish enough to be in alignment with who you are, you don't have anything to give anyone, you see.
Yes.
That's why we often say that your children are the teachers, because they remember more clearly their worthiness and their power and their zest for life. In other words, they are as you were when you were born, and they are as you as a natural creator really are. They are here to demonstrate that, you see.
Yes.
So give us an example of something that you see happening, and we will step into your shoes and tell you what we would do if we were standing in your shoes.
Okay. Well, my one little great niece, Maggie, does not, and I don't blame her, but she does not like to be in a car seat and be restrained or confined in a car seat. So it's often okay, well, we either sit in the car and just wait for her to, decide she's going to get in there, because we're supposed to do that. We're supposed to put her in the car seat so it's safe for her. And
you would be breaking the law if you did not?
Yes, and we'd be breaking the law if we did not.
All right, now let's assume that you are someone who has been restrained by this law yourself.
Yes.
Let's assume that you've decided that it's just easier to go with the flow of this law than to buck the current of it, even though you at one time survived riding in the back of pickup trucks with no seatbelt.
In a station wagon, falling back and forth.
But let's say that you have decided that your desire is that this child comply with the law or allow you to comply with the law, and so you've decided that this child is going to be buckled in. Now consider what we were saying earlier. We gave a couple of examples of it where this is what is. I am going to do this, and I have a choice of complaining about it or about going with the flow of it. So can you see how putting the child in the seatbelts so that you are not breaking the law, and some would say, well, I don't think that I should have to do that, but you hear stories of people who let their children not be in seatbelts and other parents turn them in. In other words,
well, I don't really do the fear thing very well, so, it doesn't bother me personally.
But let's say that you've decided that you are the adult and you are going to strap this child in. So what would be so terrible about strapping a child in and explaining this is what is? And you have a choice of having a terrible ride while you're strapped in or having a more pleasant ride while you're strapped in. You have a choice of complaining about it and fighting it and having a miserable time and making everyone else miserable, or you have the choice of going along with it. Now, when we talk like that, what does that evoke within you? Because a lot of people say, oh, Abraham, you're all the time touting this freedom that we are all born into, and yet you're actually encouraging us to keep some human law and strap a child into what is often an uncomfortable situation, and that doesn't feel like freedom. And we say, but don't miss the point of what freedom really is. If you believe that freedom is about coercing others and controlling conditions, that's not freedom. Freedom is being able to control your vibration regardless of what's happening. It was very interesting to watch Jerry because he is adamantly opposed to the seatbelt law. He thinks that he should be allowed to do what he wants. And when he considered a car that strapped him in automatically, he refused to rent that car again because he wants control of his seatbelt. And then when he watched Kate, granddaughter Kate, she is 4 now, but she was much younger when she was first strapped in, and he watched her being strapped in, and he knew she could not be comfortable, but she didn't know any better, and so she acquiesced to being strapped in, to the point that when they would get in the car with her, the first thing she would do is encourage him to buckle up. Joyfully buckle up. In other words, it was the car doesn't really go until everybody is buckled up. So it's time for you to get buckled up. And then when she gets on the golf cart, buckle up, buckle up. She wants everyone to buckle up. It's like a joyful, lilting little voice about buckling up. There's no resentment. There's no discomfort. There's no discord. But what we're suggesting is that even if you are in a situation where something is being asked of you that you don't feel that you should have to offer, believing that you have to change those conditions is the opposite of freedom, because you can't change those conditions. Right. You could refuse to buckle up, but you can't change the law. And then every time you see somebody else you care about being buckled up, you're still in that controverted place. You will not find freedom unless you are going with the flow.
Yes.
So, is that clear at all?
Yes, very.
So the freedom that you're all looking for, and this is a thing that you want, what a wonderful opportunity to express this to little ones.
Yes.
You're free to feel good or you're free to feel bad. And this child might say, but I'm not free to be out of this seatbelt. Right. And what you want to convey is there's a bigger freedom than that one. And that's a little hard to hear, we know. Yes. You could say that to someone in jail. You're free to feel the way you want to feel in jail. And they would say, give me a break. You're free to feel good in a body that has cancer. Yes. And if you do, you can find wellness. You're free to feel financially free in bankruptcy or in debt that is weighing you down. You're free to feel free. Yes. And you say, oh, I can't possibly be free until someone give me some money and then I'll feel free. Let me out of jail and then I'll feel free. Cure my cancer and then I'll feel healthy. And we say, it doesn't work that way. You've got got to find the feeling of freedom in the motion of your stream. And when you do, the stream will carry you to the manifestations that you are now demanding.